Lost cities discovered in modern times. Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet holds secrets, not just old coins or dusty bones, but entire cities swallowed by time. Picture places so grand, so full of ancient life, that they simply vanished, leaving no trace for hundreds, even thousands of years. Then, one day, in our modern world of cars and phones, someone stumbles upon them. This is not a fairy tale. This is real history. A story of incredible discoveries that changed everything we thought we knew. Our story begins with a young woman named Dr. Lena Sharma. She wasn't an explorer with a big hat and a whip. Lena was a scientist, a quiet woman with bright, curious eyes and a love for old maps. She worked in a dusty university office, surrounded by books and strange, ancient drawings. Lena had a big dream: to find a place called Ilara. Ilara was a legend, a city whispered about in old texts, said to be hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest. Most people thought it was just a myth, a bedtime story for archaeologists. But Lena believed. She felt it in her bones. One day, Lena found a very old drawing in a forgotten book. It wasn't a map, not really. It was more like a child's scribble, but something about it made her heart beat faster. It showed strange symbols and lines that looked a little like rivers. She spent weeks, months, tracing these lines, comparing them to satellite images of the Amazon. It was like putting together a giant, impossible puzzle. The rainforest was a huge, green blanket, covering everything. How could anything hide there for so long? Lena had a small team. There was Ben, a strong and kind pilot who flew their little plane. He had a big laugh and eyes that saw everything from above. And there was Maria, a smart and quick young woman who knew all about plants and animals. Maria could tell a poisonous snake from a harmless vine in a blink. They all believed in Lena, even when others laughed. Their adventure started with a small, rumbling plane. The jungle stretched out forever below them, a sea of green. It was hot and sticky inside the plane. Lena held her old drawing tight. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. What if she was wrong? What if Ilara was just a dream? Ben flew the plane lower, following the winding river below. "Lena, my eyes are tired of green," he joked, but his voice was full of focus. Maria pointed out colorful birds and swinging monkeys from the window. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and blooming flowers. Suddenly, Lena gasped. "Ben, lower. Look there," she yelled, pointing with a shaking finger. Below them, tucked between two thick parts of the jungle, was a patch of ground that looked different. It wasn't just green. There were faint, straight lines. They looked like walls, like something man-made. Ben dropped the plane lower, circling carefully. From above, the lines became clearer. They were too perfect to be natural. It looked like a giant, half-buried checkerboard. This was it. This had to be it. Ilara. They had found it. Their landing was bumpy on a small, overgrown strip of land near the river. The jungle immediately swallowed them in its embrace. The air was hot and thick, humming with unseen insects. The sounds of birds and monkeys filled their ears. It was a completely different world from the quiet university office. They pushed their way through thick vines and tall trees, Maria leading the way with a sharp machete. Sweat dripped down their faces. The ground was soft and wet. After what felt like hours, they reached a place where the trees seemed to thin out. And there it was. Not a city, not yet, but a clear, stone wall, covered in moss and ferns, stretching up from the ground. It was ancient, weathered, but still strong. Lena reached out and touched the cool stone. It felt smooth under her fingertips. A shiver ran down her spine. "It's real," she whispered, her voice full of wonder. "Ilara is real." They spent days clearing a small camp. Every morning, they would wake up to the loud calls of jungle birds. Every evening, the forest came alive with new sounds as the sun dipped below the trees. They worked slowly, carefully, like detectives solving a very old mystery. Maria helped identify plants, making sure they didn't touch anything dangerous. Ben used his strength to move heavy fallen branches. Lena, with her small tools, uncovered the stones. Piece by piece, the city started to show itself. First, more walls, then, steps that led down into the earth. It was like peeling back layers of time. The stones were carved with strange symbols. Lena knew some of them, but many were new, telling a story she couldn't yet read. She carefully drew every symbol, every pattern, into her notebook. One afternoon, while clearing away some roots near a large, flat stone, Lena found something truly amazing. It was a statue. It lay on its side, covered in dirt and moss. Ben and Maria helped her gently lift it. It was a figure of a person, but their face was unlike any she had seen before. The eyes were wide and calm, looking up at the sky. They were carved with such detail, you could almost feel the person breathing. Who were these people? Maria wondered, looking at the statue with wide eyes. What kind of city was this? As they dug deeper, they found more. They uncovered a large, open space that looked like a city square. In the middle, there was a tall pillar, also covered in symbols. It was like finding a secret library hidden under the ground. The city was not just walls. It was art, history, and a lost way of life. One morning, the air felt heavy. Dark clouds gathered quickly above the canopy. A storm was coming. Ben looked worried. We need to be careful, Lena. The river can rise fast. They tried to work quickly, but the rain started. It poured down, heavy and loud, turning the ground into mud. They huddled under a makeshift tarp. Thunder rumbled, shaking the very earth. The jungle became a dark, noisy, and frightening place. As the storm raged, a tree fell nearby with a loud crack, startling them all. When the rain finally slowed, they looked to where the tree had crashed. It had ripped open a part of the ground, and there, underneath, was a perfect, smooth archway, almost completely hidden before. It was an entrance. Their hearts thumped with excitement. The storm, as terrible as it was, had opened a door. They waited until the next morning, making sure it was safe. The air was fresh and clean after the rain, smelling of wet earth. With torches lit, Lena, Ben, and Maria carefully stepped through the archway. It led into a dark tunnel. The air inside was cool and still. Every sound echoed. Their torchlight danced on the walls, showing more carvings. They were walking deeper into Alara, into its very heart. The tunnel opened into a large chamber. It was like stepping into a dream. The chamber was enormous, with a high ceiling. In the center was a pool of clear water. Around the pool were more statues, bigger and more detailed than the one they had found outside. These figures seemed to be watching the pool, their carved eyes fixed on it. On the walls, there were paintings. They were faded, but Lena could still see vibrant colors and scenes of people doing everyday things, farming, dancing, talking. There were also paintings of stars and strange creatures, as if these people had known about worlds beyond their own. This was not just a city, it was a civilization, full of life and stories. It's breathtaking, Maria whispered, her voice full of awe. They painted their whole world here. Lena carefully walked around the chamber, shining her torch on every detail. Her fingers traced the lines of the paintings. She felt a connection to these long-gone people, like they were reaching out across time. This was more than just finding stones. It was finding a voice that had been silent for centuries. But then, Ben pointed to something at the edge of the chamber. Lena, look. There, on a stone stand, was a small, glowing object. It pulsed with a soft, blue light. It looked like a crystal, perfectly smooth and clear. It hummed faintly, a sound so quiet you could almost miss it. Lena had never seen anything like it. It felt ancient, yet somehow alive. What is it? Maria asked, her voice hushed. Lena slowly reached out her hand, her fingers trembling slightly. As she got closer, the light pulsed a little brighter. She didn't touch it. Something about it felt powerful, magical. Was this some kind of technology? A relic of a lost power? They spent hours in the chamber, documenting everything. Lena took many pictures, drew more sketches, and tried to understand the symbols on the walls. The glowing crystal seemed to watch them, its soft light a silent witness. They left it untouched, unsure of its purpose or power. Leaving the chamber felt like leaving a spellbound place. Back in their camp, they talked late into the night. Lena knew they had made an incredible discovery, one that would change history books forever. But she also felt a deep sense of responsibility. This city, Alara, deserved to be understood, protected. News of their discovery slowly spread. It wasn't like a sudden loud bang. It was more like a ripple in a quiet pond. First, other scientists heard. Then, the news media started to pay attention. Soon, Lena and her team were not just quiet researchers. They were heroes, pioneers. More experts came to Alara. Big teams of archaeologists, historians, and scientists arrived. They set up larger camps. The jungle around Alara slowly became a bustling hub of activity. Machines carefully cleared more earth. Every day, new parts of the city were uncovered. They found homes, temples, and even a large marketplace. The city was bigger than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just a small town, it was a grand capital, full of life and clever ideas. The people of Alara had built water systems, roads, and even a form of writing that was still being figured out. The glowing crystal from the hidden chamber became a big mystery. Scientists studied it from afar, using special tools. They couldn't figure out what it was made of or how it worked. It just sat there, humming softly, a piece of something truly unknown from a lost world. Some people said it was a power source. Others thought it was a message. Lena felt a mix of joy and sadness. Joy because her dream had come true, and the world now knew about Alara. Sadness because the quiet, secret world she had found was now open to everyone. It was no longer just her discovery, but the world's. One day, an older, very famous archaeologist, Professor Alastair Finch, came to Alara. He had a stern face and a reputation for being very smart. He walked around the city, his eyes sharp and observant. He spent a long time looking at the statues, the carvings, and the structure of the building. Professor Finch finally came to Lena. "Dr. Sharma," he said, his voice deep. "This is an extraordinary find. Truly extraordinary." He looked at her with new respect. "But we have a big problem." Lena felt a knot in her stomach. "What kind of problem, Professor?" He explained that the rainforest, which had kept Alara hidden for so long, was also slowly destroying it. The constant dampness, the tree roots, the heavy rains, all these things were eating away at the ancient stones. The glowing crystal in the chamber, they discovered, was actually holding back some of the decay, preserving the chamber in a strange way. But the rest of the city was in danger. Protecting Alara became a huge challenge. Teams of engineers and conservationists came in. They started building special covers to shield parts of the city from the rain. They worked to stop the tree roots from breaking through walls. It was a race against time and nature. The discovery of Alara also brought up many questions. Who were these people? Where did they come from? Why did their city disappear? There were no clear answers. It was like finding a perfect puzzle, but missing half the pieces. Lena spent her days working with the new teams, explaining her original findings, guiding them through the parts of the city she knew best. She watched as new discoveries were made every day. Each new piece of pottery, every carved tool, added to the story of Alara. One evening, after a long day of work, Lena sat by the edge of the newly uncovered city square. The sun was setting, painting the sky in fiery colors. The sounds of the jungle were softer now. She thought about the people who had walked these same stones so long ago. What would they think if they saw all the modern people bustling about their ancient home? Professor Finch sat down beside her. "Dr. Sharma," he said, "I've been thinking about the glowing crystal. We've done some more tests, very carefully. It seems to be drawing energy from the earth itself. It's almost like a living thing, sustaining what's around it." Lena felt a chill. So, it wasn't just a relic. It was a protector. Perhaps, Finch nodded slowly. Perhaps it was built to keep this chamber, this heart of their city, safe through the ages. A beacon of their knowledge, waiting for someone to find it. The idea that the people of Alara had built something with such purpose, such foresight, was amazing. It meant they weren't just simple people. They were clever, wise, and perhaps even knew their city would be lost, but not forever. The story of Alara went global. Documentaries were made, books were written. People all over the world were fascinated by this lost city found in the deep jungle. It showed everyone that there were still so many secrets hidden on our planet, waiting to be found. It made people look at old legends in a new way. Maybe those myths weren't always just stories. Maybe some were whispers of lost truth. Lena stayed at Alara. She became its guardian, its voice. She helped set up a special research center there. Her days were now filled with teaching new students, guiding visitors, and continuing the endless work of uncovering and understanding the city. She loved seeing the wonder in people's eyes as they first saw the ancient stones rising from the earth. But Alara wasn't the only lost city to be found. Its discovery sparked a new wave of exploration. People began to look at old maps, ancient texts, and even their own backyards with fresh eyes. If Alara could hide for so long, what else was out there? And indeed, Alara was just the beginning. Years later, in the cold, dry deserts of North Africa, a new team of explorers, inspired by Lena's work, found something incredible. They were looking for old Roman roads, using special radar that could see under the sand. The radar showed something huge, something that didn't look like any natural rock formation. It was like finding a buried mountain. They started to dig. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The desert wind was harsh, and the sun beat down. But they kept going, because the radar showed outlines of buildings, roads, and even a large amphitheater, a giant outdoor theater. Slowly, carefully, they unearthed an entire city. It wasn't hidden by a jungle, but by centuries of sand, like a giant blanket. This city was called Xylos, a name found on a few broken pieces of pottery. It was completely different from Alara. Xylos was made of a light, sandy-colored stone, built to withstand the desert heat. The architecture was grand, with huge columns and wide, open spaces. Unlike Alara, which felt mysterious and spiritual, Xylos felt powerful and proud. Its people clearly loved order and strength. They found beautiful mosaics, colorful pictures made of tiny stones, showing scenes of desert life, hunting, and trade. The biggest discovery in Xylos was a giant library, buried almost perfectly. Inside, thousands of clay tablets and papyrus scrolls were found, carefully preserved by the dry desert air. These weren't just stories, they were records of their daily lives, their laws, their science, and even their poetry. Reading these texts was like stepping into a time machine. The people of Xylos had known about stars, had invented clever tools, and had a complex government. They traded with distant lands and knew about cultures far beyond their desert home. Their language was a new challenge, but slowly, the experts began to understand their words, to hear their ancient voices. The biggest mystery of Xylos was why it was abandoned. The texts hinted at a slow environmental change. The desert, which was once more forgiving, grew harsher. Water became scarce. People slowly moved away, leaving their grand city to the sand. It wasn't a sudden disaster, but a slow, sad fade. Lena, now a respected elder in the world of archaeology, visited Xylos. She walked through its sandy streets, marveling at the strength of its buildings. She touched the ancient clay tablets, feeling the weight of the words from so long ago. It was a different kind of lost city, but just as important, just as amazing. The discovery of Xylos, following Alara, proved a simple, yet profound truth. Our world is far older and far more full of stories than we can ever imagine. Lost cities aren't just myth, they are real, waiting patiently for us to find them, to listen to their silent whispers, and to learn from the people who built them. These discoveries weren't just about finding old stones. They were about finding ourselves. They showed us how people lived, loved, and learned thousands of years ago. They showed us our shared human history, a tapestry woven with countless threads, many of which are still buried, waiting for someone to gently pull them from the earth. Every time a lost city is found, it's like a forgotten chapter in the book of humanity is finally opened, reminding us of the endless wonders hidden in our past, and the exciting possibilities that still lie hidden in our future. The search continues, for who knows what other incredible places are still sleeping, just beneath our feet.